from use if the gondola happens to be extra high. But if it's city funded, the trails are all armored, and I don't think that it's going to be tremendously expensive to maintain that. So they build like kind of like a hill. I don't know if you've seen those trails, but they put flagstone is the wrong word. So it's not erosion. So it won't be just like mud. And is that right? But there's a couple ways that that happen. And like they are interested in this project because they want to stop the super dangerous trail use up there. And so their trail building team is a pro team, and they would be involved too. And the county is kind of agreeing with the county like their trail team is also our team for the trail. So they're kind of a regional stakeholder thing. I can once I know a little bit more, I can tell you. Sure, yeah. Well, for sure, I will eventually, it could get about 15,000 trails. But that would only be part of successful if everything's going good. And if that happens, we're going to be on the plan no matter what. This first thing is like, I think they'll still be involved. There's 2 trails that they're probably going to build no matter what. But the pedestrian trails we have to the top of the first peak at Rosa, like, I don't know if you've ever done it, but there's like a first peak, and then it kind of goes on a ridge back towards Santa Fe Mine Trail. And so that first peak, we'll probably have purchased too. And if not, we'll probably just maintain the park. We're already kind of responsible for that because it's city-owned property and it's vacant. So like that should be great. That's one of the safety issue, but there's all the land up there and all that kind of stuff. So this lets us kind of mitigate that.
We still go for double doors open. They can draw that had to like bounce it on the tow truck to get it to kind of go down. So it's a track vehicle, to go down there. There's a dozen, like you said, somebody's got a lot of rollers. Small, start with the county.
First week was amazing. They were in sewer and it was just like, As soon as we go north, getting there was nice. Sun for about 8 days. Driving in the years, cloudy and rain as well. And as soon as we got into the Yukon, it got hot as well. And once we crossed, literally like the city across the I love Florida. I mean, guys, I'm not going to help you. That'll be easy. Actually, the Kenai fire is still going. It's called the Smoke Fire. It's the biggest fire, biggest one. Things are really crazy. Just crazy. It was so sad. No, we got out to Houma. It was the winds were good. So we were out on the peninsula. So we got and then once we never saw Denali. Once we did, it was nice. But all the sewer was terrible. Yeah, it was sewer. I like turbines. They do double as much in cost. That was food to buy things. Yeah, we spent a lot of time. It's really yeah, it was fun. I mean, I felt like
I think you know.
I felt like we had enough time. It was gradually being rushed, but the areas that we went, I felt like we had enough time. We just see very nice good self-driving.
We did. We had this morning. It was at the front desk before signing in.
The school was it was really nice. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think
it was a neat
we had the
we were really fun.
they had a presentation.
We went to at some point. It was really
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. Welcome everybody to our regular city council meeting, September 23rd, 2019. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Tracy Stokes. Here. Bob Boland.
Here.
John Curtis.
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If anybody has not signed up for public comment, we have a sheet up here. Have to get another minute to sign up. And we'll move on. We have an agenda in front of us. I need a motion.
Move to approve the agenda for the September 23rd, 2019 meeting.
Do I have a second? Discussion. Hearing nothing, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, do we have anybody feel that they have a conflict of interest tonight?
Yes, I do. During the city administrator's report, I need to recuse myself during the action item.
Thanks, Bob. All right, minutes. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes from September 9th, 2019.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move to the bills. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve bills November 23rd, 2019, and salaries for August 2019.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Anybody have any questions on the bills?
There was one big one for street lighting, street lighting repair.
What page was that on?
Towards the end,
So repair or Silver Creek?
street lighting, this was a biggie.
Can't find it, Scott.
No,
Page 12. Was it under Excel for streetlights?
yeah, it was under street lighting.
That is a monthly charge for lighting streetlights.
Okay.
And then you'll notice on page 3, there's a $10,000 right in the middle of the page. This $10,000 payout was something that that we got from CDPHE. There was a fine we had a couple of years ago,
Last April.
last April, where some chlorine got into the water. And we got a fine for that. That's what that $10,000 is for. Okay, hearing nothing, do I have a roll call?
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Jason Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
Sean Curtis.
Yes.
All right, unscheduled public comment? Andy Luca?
Candy Lugo, 850 West Chicago Creek Road. First, I'd like to say I'm so happy to see Bob Boland here tonight.
Oh.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you're well.
Very much.
I put the little card in the mail today. I didn't expect to see
Thank you.
it. So good job.
Thank you, Candy.
I've been coming to city council meetings for several years now, watching as you guys have moved several projects through. And nearly every time, to his credit, John Bordoni has said, you can go ahead and build it, but we really don't have the people or the resources to maintain it. I think a lot of us have heard that. I was reading the local paper this week about the VCMP, which for those of you who don't know what that is, that stands for the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. And I just had some concerns about this particular park. It looks like it's not quite ready to go. In the design phase, I spoke to the designer, and I asked him specifically about parking. Where is the parking plan? You know, how do people with their bicycles, where do they park at? And he said that that wasn't in the plan, and hopefully at some time at a future date, they'll park at the Argo. So I'm glad Mary Jane's here, she can speak to that. Because my vision of this mountain bike park is that our bicyclists will be parking on Virginia Street or Virginia Canyon Road and accessing it. And she's shaking her head, she has all the So that's my vision. Because it's not, the parking is not really planned into it, from what he told me. The other thing I asked about trash pickup and restrooms, because I was really kind of concerned with adding that much more facility, you know, for the city crew who's already short-handed and stuff to take care of. And at this time, I don't think there's any scheduled to be built during this first phase. I'd have to defer that to the staff. The third question or concern that I have about the bike park is that from what I read in the paper, it's hike and bike only, so no access to emergency response vehicles and things like that. When I asked the designer about emergency response, he said that they could, when the gondola is built, they can access it that way, or things like that. But I would hate to see this go through without the city having good access, because let's face it, it's bicycles. People get hurt. And I would really hate to see our little town get sued because they took a long time to get emergency response vehicles up there or something like that. So that's another one of my concerns about the park. Moving forward as quickly as it is, I'm not sure where it came from, but I'm sure it was thought out. I think those were my three main issues. The only other thing that I wanted to point out is that in the August, sorry, I know I'm running out of time, so I'll try to keep this short. Anyway, August 21st, this bike park up on Floyd Hill opened, and it's the same type of a thing. So it feels like we're competing with the county for the same type of users.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
Okay, Ruth Behringer?
Well, you managed to rankle the feelings of a lot of people in our community this summer, in case you didn't notice it. And I know you've learned a few things out, and a few of you begin to figure a few things out about the community. I know our community has figured out a whole lot of things about you. 2 positions are missing. 2 positions are up for re-election. A contract has been set with a parking company to conveniently automatically renew next month. Now, I know there's discussion, you're playing around with, maybe we won't renew it automatically. Maybe you will. 2/3 of this board may be completely different after the election. Those people will have to deal with your contract, whether you postpone it or whether you enact it. Those people will have to bear the fruit of the things that have rankled them this summer that some of you don't even care about. I'm asking you tonight to do something decent. Postpone your contract until 60 days after the elected officials, be they those that are running for re-election and the 2 new ones, have a chance to sit on the board and get familiar with the problems that have been created for this community to deal with. That really is all I have for you, except that you've made a very difficult situation appear to the people that really had a very simple answer.
Thank you, Mr. Behringer. Sid Haas? Sid?
Defer his time. I'm going to defer my time to Mike.
Okay. Mike Kowalski?
Sorry. I talked too fast, so I thought
Simplify. Buzzer. All right, I had a couple of things. I'm Mike Kowalski. I live 1129 Colorado Boulevard. I'm here tonight. I had a couple of logistical concerns just in comments from the work session this evening. I guess first of all, the mountain bike park on Virginia Canyon and the city's ability to logistically manage, pay for it, deal with all of that. It sounds like the Argo has a wonderful plan firing up with the gondola, and it sounds like the majority of the access and parking would be facilitated through them. So I guess my suggestion or question in regards to that, due to maintenance, maintaining, liability, emergency services, etc., why the city wouldn't consider doing at least, even if it were $1 a year for 50 years on that unusable piece of property to the city, to the Argo, so that they could manage the bike path and suit it to the needs of this great project that seems to be taking place. similar to a ski area. I believe that's about how the Forest Service does it. It just seemed like a logical route to go rather than all of the red tape and easements and access and liability and who can do what. It seemed like a simple solution that might allow it to be a positive project. Other than that, one of the, in regards to the parking issues, you guys might not know it, but one of the co-founders of Facebook actually about 10 days ago spent about 5 days in Idaho Springs. He's the former executive Australian operations director. His father lives here, so you can Google his name if you'd like. He lives in California. He also lives in Australia part-time. And he came here to use the downtown area. Funding's not an issue. He didn't mind paying for parking. He's very familiar with kiosk parking through the entire California area. And he was unable to use our system in a fashion that he was so disgusted. He sent me an email. My wife will read that for you guys here later. In the logistical operations of how it worked and how it was unfitting. He also had several times in the resident parking only area to have to go out and instruct who he was and that he was here visiting as a guest in order to not receive a ticket for being in that zone, which isn't very friendly or convenient as well. So those are kind of the bigger issues that that I've had. You know, you'd mentioned also that turning it off and on is going to be difficult for people to understand, which is a logical thought. But even our major business owners like Ojo's, the Cidery, a lot of the biggies were talking about how in the off season that they felt the paid parking should be reduced, obviously, and obvious things like that. We had heard at those community meetings. So I think there's a real obstacle to try to be addressed in those regards to try to fit the needs. I just don't think we're ready, and I don't think that interstate parking, if we are going to have a parking plan, is the company to facilitate that. I'm not impressed with their service and how they've done things in our town, and it's certainly adversely affecting me in my personal life as a resident in the current parking zone, as well as working in a business in the downtown district. And then lastly, we had touched on Zacharias's position in the work session and how he takes a lot of heat. And I strongly feel that you receive the kind of attitude from people that you deliver. And I've spoken to Clear Creek County Sheriff's officers that had to intervene over age-appropriate kids playing ball in front of Carlson on the grassy area and the ball rolling into the street and threatening it. If that ball rolls in the street, I'm taking it. And then it did. He waited, and he took it. And when little kids that are age-appropriate playing at our elementary school run up to a county officer and say, "This guy stole our football, this guy stole our football," and when he was asked by the officer, he simply says, "Well, I told him and I warned him." And so the county officer had to inform him that he's not a police officer and that what he was doing was theft and he needed to return the football and use. So you get the attitude that you deliver. And I've had several interactions with him and I have not been impressed. So it might be a personnel issue, not the type of position that you guys are holding. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Amanda?
I'm Amanda Kavalewski, also at 1129 Boulevard. I was just going to read that email from our friend Manhattan. He said, like we talked about, there are definitely easier parking systems than the one in Idaho Springs. The machine is needlessly complicated, and so much so that I couldn't figure out how to park for only half an hour. The parking experience was this: walked to the meter machine, realized I needed my license plate, which I definitely didn't know because I was driving a rental. Walk back to the car and then back to the machine, wait a couple minutes while the person now using it tries to figure out how it works. Input my license plate number and a new screen displays that has a full 10-hour parking as the default time. Tried unsuccessfully to figure out how to reduce the number of hours since I only wanted a half hour. So there were far too many buttons and a full keyboard for what amounts to a fairly simple and straightforward transaction. You mentioned this was out to bid and the provider may change. I highly recommend looking for other vendors or at least have the current one install different machines. I'll send you some examples of metered parking in California and how simple those ones are.
Thank you, Amanda. Mary Jane?
Mary Jane Lovely, 110 Montaigne Drive. I was gonna just comment on the parking, because I was at the work session. I just wanted to suggest, because there's really only 40 or 50 business owners downtown that are affected by the parking, that it might be worth just actually calling every business owner. Because we only had 17 surveys, right? And I know I gave mine to Jonathan tonight because I had not filled mine out. And I think a few hours actually interfacing with every business owner might give us a real number. And then just because Candy brought up the bike park, and we've been very careful with the city and Allen and Comba to not call it a bike park. It's a multi-use hiking and biking park, of which the Argo is really happy to be a proud partner of it in helping get this done. And we're also hoping to we will be providing the services, et cetera, for the hiking and biking activities that will be happening there. And our easements, our cross easements, et cetera, contemplate no parking on Virginia Canyon. If and when the gondola gets approved, there is no parking at the top. The request is that people using the hiking and biking park only take the gondola to access it. So Chris Malenka, the chief, says this will increase safety, help oversight of the park. And I'm not sure about the legality of it, but according to the city's attorney, BLM land that was transferred to the city cannot be used by a private company. So there's lots of little innuendos there that we're dealing with, but I just wanted you to know that in our development, we're working to make this safe, accessible for hikers and bikers, and provide funding from each gondola ticket that will help provide maintenance, construction, and parking. So.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
Yep.
All right. We will move down to public comment. Larry Dungan, want to state your name and where you reside, please?
I'm Larry Dungan. I reside at 1890 County 308. I own 1520 Minor Street. It's a pastry shop. And I bought the building in 2016, and it actually, at that point, what I'm here for today is I'm going to request that there was a second tap fee added to my building last cycle on the water tap fees. What I'm here today for is to ask that it be removed. And when I bought the building, it did have 3 bathrooms in it, and it also had a kitchen in the back of it. Right now, after the plans that were signed off in February 2017, all that's in that building is 2 bathrooms, mop sink, a dishwashing sink, a vegetable sink, and a hand sink. There's nothing else in there, and it does not warrant a second service fee on that tap.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking, is that you remove that service fee.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
All right. And so I won't get anything resolved by asking you this here. What do I need to do next?
I will have to look at and talk with the clerk and see exactly what, and our billing clerk to see exactly why it was added on.
All right, because it did increase 400% in a 4-month period, and it's just a little excessive for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on down to City Administrator.
Mayor and Council, you have my report with one request for action, please.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to say one other thing. I'd like to thank you guys, especially Jonathan Kane here, because the top of that building had some really rickety windows in it and stuff, and through that grant program, I did receive enough funding to put a decorative type window in that building and really improve the face of it and the safety of it, just because it's tempered glass and stuff that's in it now, so.
Good, that's what we wanted to hear about those grants.
Yeah, 2 yard or whatever. Needs certified by
All right,
So we need a motion?
yes,
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 easement agreements between the city, Argo Holdings LLC, and Mary Jane Lovely concerning mutual accesses related to the development of Virginia Canyon Mountain Park and the Argo properties.
can I have a second? Motion and second discussion. This is just the easement agreement to get it built. I'm just going to address real shortly about the concern about maintaining and cleaning. Believe that's going to be a long process. We're working with the county. There's going to be a collaborative effort to keep the trail system clean and keep it up to what the standards that it needs to be. So these, believe me, long conversations and lots of meetings, Candace, about the
I brought up the emergency services at the last meeting,
yeah,
and that was supposed to be addressed.
it was.
Or it is going to be addressed.
It's going to be addressed, you know, and it's going to be EMS, it's going to be fire, it's going to be law enforcement, everything. So these are things that we won't take lightly, and we will make sure that it's in place before it opens. Alan?
Would you just like me to answer just a couple of those things definitively?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to just answer a couple of those things definitively? I mean, I don't have to, but I'd be happy to.
No, please do.
Okay, this is a very complicated project. Monty, Park Community Development Planner. Parking, first of all, so right now what we're doing is a trail planning. When we actually come forward to start developing this project, we're going to be working with the Argo, and they're going to have to do a final development plan. And the final development plan has to go through everything, including a traffic study and a parking study, geologic reports, blah, blah, blah. And part of that includes 220 parking spaces that's going to be on the Argo property. We're going to look at that under the speed of the gondola and the cars and all that to make sure that 220 parking spaces is going to be adequate for the park. But all the parking right now is anticipated to be on the Argo property. In regard to the maintenance, because that's a really good question, and that was one thing Bordoni kept asking me over and over again, right, which is very reasonable. The first section of the park, which is only 3 miles, we've been in discussions with the county, just like the mayor said, with the county trails, and we're going to have a deal worked out with the county where they're going to maintain those first sections. We're also working with the Colorado Mountain Bike Association and some other organizations that they're going to adopt, build, and maintain some of these sections. There's also going to be a public-private development agreement in regard to how the bathrooms work and all that. So that's all stuff that's going to happen as we're doing the final development plan. That'll all be public record, and I welcome anybody to come because I think that there's a lot of devil in the details. And then I think the mayor already talked about the easements. We have to have permanent easements in order to make this go forward. Did I answer all the questions?
And I think that was a question that why we didn't just do a dollar lease for 20 years or something. We have to be grant. To be able to get a grant.
Yeah, thank you. The reason why we're having to do easements is the way that we're, and I think Mr. Kowalewski asked about this, the way that we're getting funding for this phase is we're going through Colorado Parks and Wildlife, a non-motorized trail grant. CPW has been involved with us for this entire time. They were on the steering committee as well as Chief Malenka about the public safety concerns. In order for us to get that grant, we have to have permanent easements. Colorado Parks and Wildlife won't give us the money just based on the lease to go away. It has to be a permanent access. So that's why we're seeking that.
Thanks.
Anything else?
All right, council, any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hill?
Yes.
Canal?
Yes.
Susie Sips? Yes. John Curtis?
Yes.
Motion passes. Bob can come back in. City clerk?
Mayor, I have my staff report for your review. There's no request for action.
Okay, any questions for Diane?
Should we wait for Bob?
I'm sorry?
Should we wait for Bob?
Okay. Can you ask a question? Do you have any questions for Diane, Bob?
No.
Okay. All right, Chief's not here. So we'll go down to John.
Mayor, Council, I refer to my staff report. I do have one request for action for additional work on the water wheel. As you know, this has been a long process and it hasn't had major repairs in 30 years since it was built. As Mr. Wallace was fixing it, we discovered that all of the fasteners on the wheel rusted, and you really don't know that until you start removing them to replace parts. So what his intent is to replace all 368 fasteners on the wheel, water wheel, with stainless steel bolts, stainless steel rods. And that's what the request reflects. We do have sufficient funds in that line item to support that additional cost.
All right, we have a motion. Not making any public comment, sorry, Jim. Do I have a motion?
So do we have questions after the motion, or if we have questions?
Yeah, we're in discussion.
I'll move to approve $23,539 to Wallace Landscaping for additional repairs to the water wheel from line number 21617042.
Do I have a second? Motion and second. Matt, discussion.
So the line item, the funding is already coming from already a budgeted, we have budget for that.
Yes, we do. There's actually $340,000 in that line item. And a portion of that was for restoration of the train, which obviously is not going to happen this year. So there's sufficient funds in that.
Is everybody okay with that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's an icon to our community, and we want it to continue to turn and look good and light up, and we can get it lit. And I say the pumpkin on it, but I know John doesn't like the pumpkin.
Well, we no longer have the pumpkin. Nobody's really sure what happened to it. But,
Oh, really?
It was disintegrated.
Yeah, it was falling apart. We probably couldn't have used it anymore. Every time we tried to put it up, it just
Ripstop nylon only lasts for so many years, and it was ripping.
Okay, any more discussion, council? Roll call.
Mike Hellman?
Yes.
Jeff Knapp?
Yes.
Lucy Stokes? Yes. Bob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
All right, we will, John, I don't see it on here, Andy. Were we going to talk about the CO from ACC?
That'll be next meeting.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Yeah, there are a few more details to work out.
All right, Dan?
Mayor and council, I'll refer you to my staff report. We have one request for action to JVA's construction administration contract. They need a change order just because we moved tertiary filter to project 1. It doesn't affect our total project cost, so it's just moving funds from project 2 to 1.
I'm just moving it from 2 to 1. Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve change order to JVA Project 1 Construction Administration Contract for $17,430 for design and engineering of tertiary filters.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Looking at you, John.
Oh,
We knew about this.
It needs to be done, it
Yeah,
needs
we
to be put
moved
in
from
there.
2 to
I
1
mean,
now, for sure.
especially when you're starting a new plan up, you know, it takes a while, 6 months to a year before you fine tune it. The seasons change, and Dan's got to figure out how to make those changes, and stuff they're using, there could be some fines. I think, he doesn't think so. Just need to catch it, and it helps water quality downstream, especially with Blackhawk right there, so. I think it's needed.
All right, any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hellman?
Yes.
Jeff Knapp?
Yes.
Lucy Stokes?
Yes.
Bob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
All right, committee reports? None? Just a little update, John's gonna help me on this. Soda Creek the project is done. We have a list items to go on Soda Creek. It's completely paved. Minor Street, we were talking about leaving the 3-way stop sign in at Minor, but we would have had to reconstruct that whole interchange to keep the stop signs in there going east and west. So at this time, we have taken them down, and I think the traffic with the speed bumps are really slowing people down through there. And hopefully it's doing the same on Soda Creek. No Marge flies about 50 miles an hour down that road, so.
Have we got any feedback on the speed bumps? Most people.
I've gotten texts that they love them. I haven't had anybody say they hate them. So,
Yeah, when I was walking around getting signatures, several people asked me about speed bumps versus stop signs on mine.
but now I'm getting requests for more of them going in on
everywhere.
Yeah, on East Minor, and so get ready, John.
We love it, John, we love it.
All right, council, anything else?
Well, I do have a question about the lighting. I'm sort of frequent it will be going in.
John?
The contractor has been working on pulling the wire.
Okay.
The lights, standards, the poles are in the storage area up on Sawyer Creek. They just have not been put up yet.
Okay. So it's underway.
It's in its process, yes.
Right.
Looking forward to that. That's going to be very nice.
And just to tag on to what Candace said, Bob, we're glad you're with us tonight. Speedy recovery. And when you told me you were craving pizza and beer, I knew you were on your way. All right.
We dreamt about it, actually.
It's 7:30, meeting adjourned. Thanks everybody for being here tonight.
More invested down there every day.